The silent watchers, the fall of Zalthria. The twin suns of Zalthria Prime hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystal spires of the capital city. For 3,000 years, the Zalthrian people had built their civilization on principles of peace, art, and scientific discovery. Their towers reached toward the heavens. Their libraries contained knowledge from 100 worlds, and their people had never known the horror of war. Until today, the sky tore open with fire and darkness. Ships emerged from the void, countless as stars, their hulls black as midnight and shaped like chitinous beetles. The Krevath swarm had arrived, and with them came extinction. Their weapons spoke in tongues of plasma and destruction. Buildings that had stood for millennia crumbled in seconds. The peaceful streets filled with screams and ash in the Planetary Defense Center. Commander Thelvis watched his world die through a dozen viewscreens. His forearms trembled as he tried to coordinate what remained of their defensive fleet. But the Zalthrians had no warriors, no battlecruisers, no weapons designed to kill. Their ships were explorers and traders, now burning like candles against the endless night of the swarm. "Send the distress signal again," Thelvis commanded, his voice breaking. "All frequencies, all known languages. Someone must hear us." His communications officer looked up with eyes filled with sorrow. "Commander, we have sent 300 signals. The nearby systems are silent. Either they cannot help, or they will not." Thelvis felt his hope crumble. The Galactic Council had abandoned them. The merchant guilds had fled. Even their closest allies had turned away when they heard the name Krevath Swarm. Everyone knew that name. Everyone feared it. The swarm did not conquer. It consumed. It left nothing behind but empty worlds and silence. Outside, another spire collapsed. Thelvis closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to the ancient stars. Then he spoke one last time into the communications array. "This is Zalthria Prime. If anyone can hear this, we are dying. Our people are dying. Please, if there is mercy left in this galaxy, help us." The message traveled into the void, joining hundreds of others that had gone unanswered. The awakening, 17 light years away? In the forgotten reaches of the Sigma Draconis system, something ancient stirred. Research Station Kepler-7 floated in the darkness between dead planets and dying stars. It was a human outpost, abandoned for over 800 years when humanity chose to withdraw from galactic affairs after the Great Silence. Dr. Mira Shenkov had spent 5 years alone on this station, studying the ruins of old human technology. She was a historian and an archaeologist, searching for answers about why humanity had vanished from the galaxy. Her skin was pale from years without natural sunlight, her dark hair tied back in a simple knot, and her eyes carried the weight of isolation. She worked in silence, documenting ancient computer systems and cataloging forgotten data cores. Most of what she found was corrupted or meaningless. But today was different. Today, something responded to her touch. The panel she had been cleaning suddenly lit up with blue light. Mira jerked back in surprise, watching as ancient circuits came alive. Dust fell away as energy pulsed through systems that had been dead for centuries. Holographic displays flickered into existence, showing star maps and data streams she had never seen before. "What in the stars? Mira whispered, her hands trembling as she approached the console. A voice emerged from the speakers, mechanical and cold, but somehow alive. "Sentinel protocol activated. Distress signal detected. Origin, Zalthria Prime. Classification, mass casualty event. Threat level, extinction." Myra's heart raced. "Computer, how did you activate?" "This station has been offline for 800 years. "Incorrect," the voice replied. "This station has been listening for 800 years. Directive 001, respond to cries for help." Directive 002. Alert the Terran Defense Fleet. The Terran fleet? Myra's eyes widened. That's impossible. The fleet disbanded centuries ago. Humanity left the galaxy to its own devices. Negative. The fleet remains. Transmitting coordinates now. Before Myra could respond, the entire station shuddered. Energy surged through conduits she thought were long dead. Ancient satellites around the station rotated, aligning themselves with precision. A massive communications array extended from the station's core, pointing toward the dark nebula at the edge of the system. Mira grabbed her scanner and ran toward the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, she saw something that made her blood run cold and her spirit soar. Lights appeared in the darkness. Not stars, but something else. Ships, dozens of them, emerging from the nebula like ghosts returning to life. They were human ships. Sleek and deadly, painted in deep blacks and grays, their hulls lined with blue energy conduits that pulsed like heartbeats. She recognized the designs from old historical records. These were Terran warships, the kind humanity had built during the Age of Guardianship, when humans had protected the galaxy from threats too terrible for others to face. They're real, Mira breathed. They've been here all along. The Fleet Awakens Captain Jonas Makara stood on the bridge of the TDS Stormbreaker, his flagship and the pride of the hidden Terran Defense Fleet. He was a man in his 50s, with steel-gray hair cut military short, a scar running down his left cheek, and eyes that had seen too many battles. He wore the black uniform of the Terran Defense Force, marked with silver stars that indicated his rank dot around him. His crew worked in focused silence. They were the descendants of humans who had chosen to stay when the rest of humanity withdrew. They had trained for generations, waiting for the day when the galaxy would need them again. That day had come. Report, Makara commanded, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. Lieutenant Sarah Chun looked up from her tactical station. She was young, barely 30, with sharp features and sharper instincts. Sir, we've confirmed the distress signal from Zalthria Prime. The Krevath swarm is conducting a full-scale extermination. Estimated time until total planetary collapse, 18 hours. Makara nodded slowly. And our fleet status? All 73 ships are online and battle-ready, Captain. The crews are prepared. We've been drilling for this moment for 800 years. Good. Makara walked to the main view screen, where the holographic image of Zalthria Prime rotated slowly, showing the devastation in real time. Red markers indicated swarm positions. Blue markers showed the dying Zalthrian Defense Forces. His second-in-command, Commander David Okonkwo, stepped beside him. David was a giant of a man, nearly 2 meters tall, with dark skin and a calm demeanor that belied his fierce loyalty. Captain, the Galactic Council will not approve of our intervention. We broke our treaty with them when we went silent. The Galactic Council abandoned the Zalthrians, Makara replied coldly. They abandoned their principles. We will not. Sir, engaging the swarm means revealing ourselves. The galaxy will know humanity still exists. Our isolation ends today. Makara turned to face his crew. Every eye was on him. These men and women had lived their entire lives in shadow, training for a purpose they weren't sure would ever come. Now that purpose stood before them, and he could see the fire in their eyes. 800 years ago, humanity chose to step back, Makara said, his voice carrying through the bridge. We were tired of being the galaxy's protectors. We were tired of watching others depend on us while they squabbled and ignored the dangers. So we vanished. We left them to their own fate. He paused, letting his words settle. But we never stopped listening. We never stopped watching. And we never abandoned our founding principle. When the innocent cry for help, we answer. The crew straightened. hands moving to their stations with renewed purpose. The Zalthrians are artists, philosophers, and dreamers. They harmed no one. And now they burn because the galaxy is too afraid to stand against the darkness. Makara's jaw tightened. Well, humanity is not afraid. We never were. And today, the galaxy will remember why. He turned to Lieutenant Shun. Signal all ships. Set course for Zalthria Prime. Maximum velocity. We have 18 hours to cross 17 light years. Sir, that's impossible with conventional drives. We'd need. Activate the quantum fold drives, Makara interrupted. All ships, synchronized jump. We're not arriving as whispers. We're arriving as thunder. Chun's hands flew across her console. Quantum drives charging. All ships reporting ready. Jump sequence initiated. Asterisk, the Stormbreaker hummed with power as its experimental drive system came online. Around it, the entire fleet began to glow with ethereal blue light. Space itself started to bend and twist around the ships as they prepared to tear through reality itself. Makara gripped the railing of his command platform. For the Zalthrians. For the innocent. For humanity's promise. The view screen showed the fleet formation. All 73 ships aligned in perfect formation. Then, in a flash of brilliant blue light, they vanished from the Sigma Draconis system. Across the galaxy, the Kreveth swarm continued its slaughter, unaware that humanity's storm was coming. And when it arrived, the galaxy would learn a truth forgotten for 800 years. When humanity chooses to fight, nothing can stand against it, that the countdown had begun. In 18 hours, Zalthria Prime would either fall into eternal darkness or be saved by the storm that humanity had become. Asterisk. The storm arrives the final hour the sky above Zalthria Prime had turned completely black. The Kreveth swarm blotted out the twin suns with their endless fleet, casting the world into premature darkness. In the ruins of the capital city, survivors huddled in underground shelters, listening to the sounds of destruction above. Every few minutes, another explosion shook the ground. Every few minutes, more of their world died. Commander Thelda sat in what remained of the defense center, surrounded by failing equipment and flickering screens. Most of his staff had evacuated or perished. Only a handful remained, sending out final messages to loved ones, documenting their civilization's last moments for whatever species might discover their ruins. "Commander," a young officer called out, her voice hollow with despair. "The northern continent has gone silent. No life signs detected. The swarm has completed harvesting that entire landmass." Thelvas said nothing. What could he say? They had fought with everything they had. Their science vessels had tried to ram the enemy ships. Their cargo haulers had been converted into makeshift bombers. Civilian volunteers had taken up whatever weapons they could find. None of it mattered. The swarm was infinite, relentless, and merciless. He looked at the chronometer on his wrist. 2 hours. Maybe 3. That was all Zalthria had left. He thought of his family, safe in the deepest shelter beneath the mountains. Safe for now. But the swarm would reach them eventually. They always did. "Keep transmitting the distress signal," he said quietly. "Until the very end. Let the galaxy know we died calling for help that never came." The communications officer nodded, tears streaming down her face as she repeated the message one more time. "This is Zalthria Prime. We are dying. Please, someone help us." The message traveled into the void, as it had thousands of times before. But this time, something was different. This time, the void answered back. The arrival every sensor on every Kravath ship activated simultaneously. Their swarm consciousness, a billion minds thinking as one, detected something impossible. Space itself was tearing open at the edge of the system. Energy readings spiked beyond anything in their vast collective memory. The swarm paused its assault, confused and curious. Then they appeared, not from hyperspace tunnels or warp gates, but from wounds in reality itself. 73 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with residual quantum energy. They were smaller than the swarm's massive bioships, more compact and precise. But the power they radiated made the void tremble. The lead ship, the TDS Stormbreaker, took position at the front of the formation. Its hull was painted midnight black with silver edges, and blue energy lines pulsed across its surface like veins of lightning. On its side, painted in letters that glowed with their own light, was a symbol the galaxy had not seen in 800 years, the emblem of Earth. A blue and green world with the words Terran Defense Force curved beneath a dot inside the Zalthrian Defense Center. Every screen suddenly came alive with new data. Thelvas jumped to his feet, his forearms trembling as he stared at the readings. "Commander," the sensor officer shouted, "unknown fleet has entered the system. Configuration. Configuration unknown. Energy signatures beyond our measurement scale. Who are they?" Thelvas demanded. "Did the Council finally send help?" "No, sir. These signatures don't match any known species. Wait, ... There's a transmission coming through. It's on all frequencies, all channels. They want everyone to hear this." A voice filled every speaker in the defense center, every radio on the planet, every communication device in the system. It was deep, calm, and carried the weight of absolute certainty. It was Captain Jonas Makara. "Attention, Cravath Swarm. This is Captain Jonas, Makara of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are in violation of the sanctuary protocols established by the Treaty of Andromeda. You have attacked a peaceful civilization without provocation. You have ignored all calls for mercy." He paused, and his next words fell like a hammer. "Your extinction of the innocent ends now." Thelvas felt his knees weaken. "Terran?" he whispered. "Humans? But they're extinct. They vanished 800 years ago." A young communications officer stared at her screen in wonder. "Commander, they're still transmitting. There's another message, directed specifically to us." A new voice came through, female and warm, carrying strength wrapped in compassion. It was Lieutenant Sarah Chun. "Zalthria Prime, this is the Terran Defense Fleet. Your distress signal has been received. Your suffering has been witnessed. You are not alone anymore. Hold on just a little longer. Humanity has arrived, and we keep our promises." Tears flowed freely down Thelvas' face. "They came," he breathed. "After 800 years of silence, they came. The battle begins. The Cravath Swarm did not understand fear. They were a collective consciousness spread across billions of drones, evolved for only one purpose: consume and expand. They had devoured 1,000 worlds. They had wiped out civilizations that had stood for millions of years. Nothing had ever stopped them, but they had never faced humanity. The swarm's command ships sent a response, a psychic scream that translated into every language. "You are obsolete beings. Your species abandoned the galaxy. You have no authority here. Withdraw or be consumed." Captain Makara's response was simple. "No." The Stormbreaker's main cannons lit up with blue fire. What happened next would be recorded in galactic history as the miracle of Zalthria. The human fleet moved as one entity, their coordination so perfect it seemed choreographed. Each ship knew its role, its target, its exact moment to fire. The first volley from the Terran fleet tore through the swarm's forward positions like a blade through paper. Massive bioships that had weathered thousands of conventional weapons simply ceased to exist, vaporized by weapons that manipulated matter at the quantum level. The swarm recoiled, its collective consciousness experiencing something new, Surprised. Commander David Okonkwo stood at the tactical station, his massive hands dancing across holographic controls. Target clusters Alpha through Epsilon eliminated. Enemy attempting to reorganize. They're adapting faster than predicted. Expected, Makara replied calmly. The swarm learns. But we've had 800 years to prepare. Chun, execute pattern Sigma. Aye, Captain. All ships, pattern Sigma. The human fleet suddenly broke formation, each ship moving in what appeared to be random directions. But there was nothing random about it. They were executing a battle strategy developed over centuries of simulation and study. The Terran ships wove between swarm vessels like dancers, their weapons firing with surgical precision. Every shot counted. Every shot killed. The Krevith swarm threw everything at the humans. Bioplasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Acid projectiles that dissolved hull plating. Swarm fighters that attacked in clouds of thousands. But the human ships moved too fast, predicted too well, struck too hard. Enemy launching boarding spores at the Thunderchild. Chun reported. Makara didn't hesitate. Thunderchild, activate Point Defense Grid 3. Incinerate them before contact. The Thunderchild, a sleek destroyer on the fleet's left flank, suddenly bristled with hundreds of small turrets. They fired simultaneously, creating a wall of superheated plasma around the ship. The swarm's boarding spores burned to ash before they could attach. On Zalthria Prime, every survivor who could reach a window or screen watched in awe as the battle unfolded above them. The darkness that had consumed their sky was now lit by blue fire and explosions. The swarm that had seemed infinite was being driven back, step by step, ship by ship. They're fighting for us, a young Zalthrian child whispered, pressed against her mother's chest. The humans from the old stories. They're real. The turning point the battle raged for 2 hours. The Krevith swarm threw wave after wave at the human fleet, but each wave broke against Terran shields and weapons. The humans fought with a combination of technology and tactics that the swarm could not comprehend. Every simulation the swarm ran to predict human behavior failed. Every adaptation they made was countered within minutes. Captain Makara stood at the center of his bridge, his eyes tracking 100 variables at once. He saw the pattern before anyone else did. They're preparing for a final assault. They're going to throw everything at our center, trying to break through to the planet. Captain, our shields are holding at 93%, Okonkwo reported. We can take whatever they throw at us. It's not about us, Makara said quietly. He pointed to the tactical display, where thousands of swarm ships were gathering into a massive spearhead formation. If they break through, they'll crash into the planet itself. A kinetic strike from that many ships would crack the crust. Billions dead in seconds. Chun's face went pale. Sir, we can't intercept them all. There are too many. Makara's jaw tightened. For a moment, the bridge was silent, except for the hum of the ship's systems. Then he made his decision. All ships, this is Makara. Execute Protocol Bulwark. Form defensive sphere around Zalthria Prime. Link shields. Maximum power to defensive systems. He paused. We hold the line. No matter what. Captain, that will leave us unable to maneuver, Okonkwo warned. We'll be sitting targets. We're not here to survive, Makara replied. We're here to protect. Execute the order. The Terran fleet moved with breathtaking speed, each ship taking position in a precise formation around the planet. Blue energy lines extended from ship to ship, linking their shields into one massive barrier. The Stormbreaker positioned itself directly in front of the incoming swarm assault, the tip of humanity's spear facing the darkness. On the surface, Felvis watched the human ships form a wall between his world and extinction. They're going to take the full impact, he whispered. They're sacrificing themselves for us. The Krevith swarm launched its final assault. 10,000 ships moving as one, all their weapons firing, all their mass focused on a single point. It was an attack that could destroy a star. It crashed into the human defensive line like a tidal wave against a cliff. The impact was visible from the ground. The sky turned white with energy discharge. The human shields flared so bright they turned night into day. Every ship in the Terran fleet shuddered under the assault. Hull plating buckled. Energy systems overloaded. Warning klaxons screamed across 73 bridges, but the line held. Captain Makara gripped his command chair as his ship rocked from multiple impacts. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The lights flickered, but his voice remained steady. Status report. Shields down to 42%, Sean called out, her station smoking. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 9. Casualties reported on 15 ships. The line? Makara demanded. Holding, sir. Not a single swarm ship has broken through. Makara allowed himself the smallest smile. Then we haven't lost. Okonkwo, are the planetary defense platforms online? Yes, sir. We uploaded the activation codes when we arrived. The Zalthrians are powering them up now. Good. Shun, signal all ships. On my mark, we drop shields for exactly 3 seconds. All weapons, full power, synchronized strike. We're going to punch through their formation and shatter their cohesion. Sir, dropping shields while under assault will give us the power we need to end this, Makara finished. The swarm thinks we're trapped. Let's show them trapped and helpless are not the same thing. He watched the countdown on his display. The swarm continued pouring fire into the human shield wall, convinced that victory was within reach. They didn't see the trap closing around them. They didn't notice the planetary defense platforms coming online below, now equipped with human targeting systems. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest weapon was not their ships or shields. It was their willingness to take the hit, so they could deliver one of their own. All ships ready, Captain, Okonkwo confirmed. Makara's voice rang clear across the fleet channel. For Zalthria, for the innocent, for every world that called for help and found only silence. He paused. Fire. 73 Terran warships dropped their shields simultaneously. For 3 seconds, they were completely vulnerable. And in those 3 seconds, they unleashed 800 years of accumulated fury. Every weapon on every ship fired at once. Quantum cannons, plasma lances, matter disruptors, and weapons whose names were classified even to most humans. The combined firepower of the entire Terran defense fleet focused on a single point in the swarm formation. The result was catastrophic. A sphere of blue-white energy expanded from the human fleet, consuming everything in its path. Swarm ships didn't just die. They ceased to exist at the molecular level. The massive spearhead formation shattered, fragments scattering in every direction. And as the swarm reeled, the planetary defense platforms opened fire from below, catching them in a devastating crossfire. The Battle of Zalthria lasted exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes. When it ended, the Krevith swarm was broken. Thousands of their ships lay dead in space. The survivors fled into the void, their collective consciousness traumatized by something they had never experienced before. Defeat. The aftermath. As the last, swarm ships vanished into hyperspace. Silence fell over Zalthria Prime. The twin suns emerged from behind the dissipating smoke, casting golden light over the devastated but surviving world. In the defense center, Commander Theldus stood motionless, staring at the screens showing the aftermath of battle. They did it, he whispered. They actually did it. The communications officer looked up, tears of joy streaming down her face. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Captain Makara's image appeared on the main screen. His uniform was torn, his face was smudged with smoke, and exhaustion was written in every line of his expression. But his eyes were clear and kind. "Commander Thelvas," he said with a slight nod, "Zalthria Prime is secure. The swarm has been driven from your system. Our medical ships are standing by to provide aid. Our engineers will help rebuild what was destroyed. You are safe now." Thelvas tried to speak, but his voice caught. Finally he managed, "Captain Makara. Why? Your people abandoned the galaxy 800 years ago. You owed us nothing. Why did you come?" Makara was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of 8 centuries of human conviction. "Because someone had to. Because you called for help, and no one answered. Because humanity learned long ago that strength without compassion is cruelty, and we refuse to be cruel." He smiled slightly. "And because 800 years ago, we made a promise. When the innocent cry out, humanity will answer. We may have been silent, Commander, but we never stopped listening." Asterisk across Zalthria Prime, in shelters and ruins, survivors emerged into the light. They looked up at the human ships still holding. Position in their sky, shields glowing softly blue, standing guard over a world they had never seen before yesterday. In the capital square, where the great library still smoldered, a crowd gathered. An elderly Zalthrian, his robes singed and his body wounded, raised his arms toward the sky. Others joined him, and soon thousands stood in silence, looking up at their saviors. Lieutenant Chun, monitoring surface communications from the Stormbreaker, reported softly to her captain. "Sir, the Zalthrians are. They're not cheering. They're not celebrating. They're just standing there, looking at us." Makara nodded. "They're processing what happened. They called into the void, and the void answered. They were abandoned by those who should have helped, and saved by those they thought were extinct. Give them time." But then, one voice began to sing. It was an old Zalthrian song, one about hope. In darkness, about light returning after the longest night. Another voice joined, then another. Soon, thousands of voices rose together, a song of gratitude sung in a language humans didn't speak but understood perfectly. On the bridge of the Stormbreaker, more than one hardened warrior wiped their eyes. Commander Okonkwo stood beside his captain, looking at the damaged but proud fleet surrounding them. "Sir, we took significant damage. 17 ships need major repairs. Casualties across the fleet are at 314 wounded, 42 dead. Make sure every family is contacted personally," Makara said quietly. "Every one of those 42 died protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. They died as heroes." "Yes, sir." Okonkwo paused. "Captain, the Galactic communication networks are lighting up. Everyone saw what happened here. The Council, the trading guilds, the independent systems. They all know now. Humanity isn't extinct. We're back." Makara looked out at the stars, at the galaxy that had forgotten them, that had learned to live without them. "Then let them remember what we stand for. Let them remember that humanity doesn't seek glory or conquest. We seek only to stand between the innocent and the dark." He turned to his crew. "Send a message on all frequencies. Let every world hear it." Asterisk Chan nodded and opened the channels. Makara's voice would reach 1,000,000,000,000 ears across the galaxy. "This is Captain Jonas Makara of the Terran Defense Fleet. 800 years ago, humanity chose to step back from the galaxy. We were tired of war, tired of being the ones called upon to fight battles others would not. We wanted peace, so we sought isolation. But today, we learned that peace and silence are not the same thing. Today, we heard a cry for help that the galaxy chose to ignore. Today, we answered that cry." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Let this be known across every world, every system, every civilization. Humanity has returned. We do not come as conquerors or rulers. We come as guardians. If you threaten the innocent, we will stand against you. If you call for help when no one else will answer, we will come. We are the storm that breaks against the darkness. We are humanity, and we will never be silent again. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, in council chambers and throne rooms, in merchant halls and military commands, beings of 1,000. Species heard humanity's message and understood. The legends were real. The ancient protectors had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk. On Zalthria Prime, as the twin suns set on a world that had survived extinction, Commander Thelva stood in the ruins of his command center and made a promise of his own. "We will remember," he said softly. "We will tell our children and our children's children. We will tell them about the day the galaxy abandoned us, and the day humanity proved that heroes are not legends. They are real. They are watching. And when we cry out, they answer." Above the planet, the Terran Defense Fleet held position, blue lights glowing softly in the darkness. They would stay until the world was safe. They would stay until every survivor was cared for. They would stay because that was who humanity was. The storm had arrived. The storm had conquered. And now the storm stood guard, ready to come again whenever the galaxy needed heroes. Because when the galaxy cried for help, humanity came as the storm got, and the storm would always answer. Asterisk.